Hi and welcome to the course for Accounting for GST inside the Reckon APS Exceed Professional Accounting module. My name's Tanya and this set course will go through the following items. We'll look at the GST rates and posting accounts, the setup and maintenance. We'll look at chart maintenance, how GST is applied to accounts and set. We'll look at the data entry to make sure that you can activate and GST on your data entry. And we'll look at the GST rate translation function, how to merge or move GST rates. But firstly, let's have a look at it and why you would need to use the GST rates for XPA. We have an XPA ledger, and the XPA ledger is not set up for GST. The reason I can see this is there is no GST menu item for this particular ledger. The ledger may have been created because it was just being used as journal entries and therefore didn't need the GST rates to be recorded, but there's been a change in process and you would like to use the transaction import, which will take care of the GST rates and bring in all the transactions and the rates applied to it. Alternatively, the client might have been small and not registered for GST and now is. So in this instance, you'll need to go into your file details and enable GST. Before you do this, you may choose to do a backup. You can do the backup by simply going File, Save As and call the ledger before GST. Just like with Word and Excel, that is the backup. I now need to go back to the original file that we've now enabled GST on. Once the GST has been enabled, you will now need to go and apply the GST rates. It's done from the menu, and it's done the same way that we look at our chart. If you show the template, it will show the master template that you're pointing to or your practice template. Now they will vary depending on the region. Once you've applied your GST rates, you will need to copy those rates down to your ledger. We suggest you copy all the rates that are relevant to your master. If you double click on a rate, you'll see that there is the rate code, the description, the account description that is being posted to, and the effective date that the rate is effective from. If there are multiple dates, then you'll need to insert where the next rate is to be applied for that particular item. Items can be deleted from here by highlighting and delete, but they can only be deleted if they're not used. You may also add your own rates so that you can apply them to a chart of accounts. So once the rates have been set, you can now have a look at your chart. In this case, we want to set sales to 30 to have a GST rate of 1 subject to GST. I can't do this through the chart area for the individual account because it has not previously been set. So I need to use the GST menu option to set the GST rates. In here, I have the ability to put in the account selections, and I can do this by drag and dropping them from the right hand side to the left. And I can also do account ranges by dropping the first and the last account into the box. In my case, I've only got one, but anything from 230 to 239, for example, would be subject to GST. So I go in and apply the relevant rate for this account selection and set those. That'll happen very instantaneously. If I now go back to my chart, I can see that account 230 has now got a rate set. But if I look at interest received, it may or may not have a rate set depending on the type of account it was. So I need to continue that process and set the GST rates for all items. With purchases, I'm going to just simply add all my P&L items down and apply the rate subject to GST. And then on an individual basis, I'll go into the chart and remove the relevant items that is not required for GST or has a different rate that needs to be applied to it. So rather than using rate 11, now that it has been set, I do have the option now to apply the relevant rate that's applicable to that account. Once that has been done, you're now ready to start transactions with GST. From your data entry menu, if you go into your journals, to enable the GST, you simply go into the journal column, GST, right click on that and enable Use Rate Code. That will enable the rate to be seen. If you don't want to enable it, you simply go and right click on it and say No Rate Code. So the journal entry option is usually turned off, but the other menu options are usually enabled. Any transactional import will come into bank statements, and in bank statements you will have the GST enabled. There may be occasions where you have applied a GST rate in the past, but the GST rates have changed or you haven't used the current master. In that case, you can use the Translate GST Rates menu option. In that process, you would insert the row and put in the old rate and put in the code that you're going to transfer it to. So you might have had an S for sales that goes to rate 1 and P for purchases, which will now go to rate 11. If that was something that was consistent in your ledgers previously, you could save that file and you could call it your master GST translate function file. Then you simply select translate. That will move anything that's in your GST rates under S and P to 1 and 11. The next ledger that you go to, you can simply go into your GST rates, you can open your master translation file and translate it relevant to the ledger. The final option in your GST menu is your print GST rates. Once transactions have been entered, the final item on the GST menu is the Print GST listing. This is using our report selector and it will go in Print the report as required once it's been used. So in this case we haven't actually got any entries in there yet. If I switch to another ledger, you'll see an idea of how that report will appear. So we have non-GST entries and the source. Then we have each total and the source and the entries for each of the rates. Let's look at the learning outcomes. We've understood how to maintain the GST rates on the client chart and the posting accounts. We understood where the rates are applied to the individual accounts in the client chart. We understood how to activate and deactivate GST data entry and understood that the GST translate function works when transferring old rates to new rates. More information is available in your workbook. On behalf of the Reckon Training Academy, we thank you for your time. If you need to contact us, please do so on the numbers on your screen. Thank you.